And this episode is going to be centered mostly around the reconciliation phase, what that looked like for each of us as individuals, and even as a collective couple again. So I guess I'll start things off. Somebody told me I had to. For me, I think the first step to reconciliation was really finding a peace between myself and God before I could progress anywhere else, before I could even consider Sam and I reconciling, before I could consider opening options to whatever kind of God had for me. The first thing I had to do was basically reconcile with him, and not even reconciling from the aspect of like repentance or anything like that, but reconciliation for knowing that he is the single most source of peace, and knowing that peace and joy, it starts within, and knowing and understanding that others that are in our lives that we choose to build relationship with, that those can help to enhance those joys and the peace that God gives us. But knowing that, they're people, that they're merely that. Sometimes we put too much emphasis on people. We put them up on a pedestal. So, when they let us down, we feel like our world is upside down, and so many circumstances and things that happen down the line are impacts based on the decisions that one person made, which is why.
Give people too much power.
Give them too much power. And that's where God says, hey, no, rest in me. If you rest in me, nothing will ever change. Your peace, your joy will never change. That doesn't mean storms, situations, circumstances won't come. It just means the way that you maneuver around those storms when they come is different. Knowing that God is your single most source of peace, and knowing that joy is within you. If you understand that joy is within you, you can also understand that nothing around you can take it from you. We are the masters of our own fate, from the aspect of God gives us free will to make choices and decisions, and he will guide our paths based on the decisions that we make, to try to bring us back to focus and help us align, bringing everything back to him. But ultimately, those choices are still up to us. So for me, that choice I had to make was, finally getting to a place where it was like, hey, God, I've kind of stepped out on my own. This divorce has happened, and you allowed me to even get into this relationship that I shouldn't have gotten into. Allowed me to kind of go through some turmoil there before I got to the point of realizing, hey, you don't need anybody. And I was at this place where, God and I were kind of redefining our relationship, getting closer with God. And I was okay. I was like, hey, if I have my kids and I have, God, like, I'm good. If nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes past that, I'm good. And, it was with that, God just kept molding me as an individual and trying to do things to be the best man that I could be. Not for anybody else, not for any particular woman, my beautiful wife, who wasn't my wife at the moment, but just being the best person that I could be according to what God wanted me to be. That was my first step for reconciliation. What about you, babe?
Pretty much. That's kind of where I was as well, because I had gotten to a point where I realized that God was going to be all that I needed. I knew that I had been searching in other people for different things, whether it was happiness and joy and things that made me feel good. And although I may feel like I was getting bits and pieces of that in several different people along the way, I had to come to the realization that God was the one that had all of that embodied into one. And once I realized that, I was able to, make peace within myself, and learn how to be satisfied with just me and God. I have been praying and praying and praying for some type of reconciliation to happen between Josh and I. But at the end of the day, it was like, Lord, if that doesn't work out, if that's not your will, then I have to know that I'm gonna be okay with just you and I. And getting to that step, it was hard. Like, it was not easy by any means, because you would have that, you would feel confident in that one day, and then something may happen along the way, and then the enemy tries to pull you away and make you think otherwise. And you just have to kind of recheck yourself and like, no, this is what you know to be true, and this is what you desire, so stick with that. And I think once that happened for me, the rest was able to just kind of fall into place without my doing by any means.
And I remember, I think the first kind of recollection I had of, I don't know, try not to give too much information, like boring you with the details, but I remember, Sam and I, we had at one point kind of changed the demographics of even pick-up points of our children, which honestly was at a point where, it shouldn't have gotten to that point, where it's like trying to keep peace, balance between the mother of my children and this relationship that I added, to where it started to dictate how we maneuvered to keep peace on all angles. So needless to say, our drop-off points had changed. And I think the first inclination that things were changing, even with myself, was that, Sam and I had met at different places to drop the kids off. I remember we were at Carowinds, I think.
We're trying to get some season passes.
For
all four of us.
Yep.
Because it was like, well, we're going to definitely get them for the kids, but who's going to take them?
Yep.
We still had, even though I feel like my mind had already started turning gears and thinking, that there was a chance, just because of things, that I had been specifically praying for to come to light, and watching God show me those different signs. But, where we stood, we were like, let's get these season passes, but when they with you, I'm not going to be coming to take them to Carowinds, so you're going to have to get a pass, and I'm going to have to get a pass. And then that's kind of where we decided to meet one Sunday.
Yep. And, we hadn't even talked about ourselves. We hadn't talked about where we were, as individuals, where we were with relationships or anything. So, at this point, I didn't know if she was in a relationship. She didn't know if I was in a relationship, because we didn't open up with that. And the main thing, even for me, once it was just me, God, and the kids, I didn't want to kind of jump in there and say, hey, Sam, by myself, what's up? What's good? I wanted to make sure that, not only she, but me as well, that we were both building this relationship with God, this genuine thing, that neither one of us was doing it for each other, but we were truly doing it for ourselves and God. Because, whether it's spirituality or anything that you're establishing, with the premise of someone else, or to gain someone else or gain something, it's only seasonal. It's something that's going to go away as soon as, that person irritates you, or as soon as that thing fades, whether it's a car, whatever it is, the different blessings that we pray for, when we put the emphasis on those blessings and not on God, then those things, they can end up pulling us further away from God. So I wanted to make sure that we both were building that independence and those relationships with Him first, before we could even discuss reconciliation. And I think
it was also Father's Day.
Yeah, it was Father's Day.
It was Father's Day,
yep.
That Sunday that we met, because I brought a gift.
Yep, a t-shirt, shirt, a button down. I still got that shirt. Yep. But from there, I know, with the drop-off pickup points for the kids, started back, kind of picking up at our own places. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know if that triggered anything with Sam. Like, wait a minute, something's changing here. Because once again, I hadn't told her.
I was picking up on it, y'all. I was like, wait a minute now, we ain't gotta meet at the gas station? Like, what? You coming to my house? Come on.
Yeah, little nuggets, but once again, it wasn't something where we both just kind of said, hey, look, now what we gonna do, But, after that, I remember it was a couple times, and then, Sam and I, we had finally started talking. It was like we were kind of dating all over again, meeting each other for the first time. Because my biggest thing, I didn't want the kids to, to have an understanding of seeing us together and thinking that things were just magically back together, because I didn't know what the end result was going to be. So, we would have conversations and, Sam would come over, but it would be when the kids were asleep, door closed, if I
So
hear a
how
door creak.
weird is that, y'all?
Right.
Like, how weird is a mother and father sneaking around, dating each other, trying not to let their own children know that they are even together?
Yeah, like, you hear the door crack or open or something, trying to push Sam down, you know what I mean? So they don't see her. But seriously though, we didn't want to impact them psychologically, or emotionally if, they see us and they're like, oh wow, this is a normal life again. And then something happens, out of our own selfishness or whatever, or the enemy sliding back in, and now, we're back at this place where our kids are heartbroken yet again.
Right.
But yeah, we started having those conversations, and before we knew it, it was like, I don't know, it just seemed like God brought this peace. He transitioned the peace that we had built as individuals, and then we were able to establish that together with more knowledge than we had before, when we were first dating, when we were first getting married and things like that. We both had different experiences that we brought to the table. And, the biggest thing for me that, I kept hearing God say, even early on, because, forgiveness piece had already happened. Forgiveness for myself, forgiveness for Sam, of just saying, hey, look, I kept hearing God say, like, how do you expect me to forgive you if you're not willing to forgive the person that's next to you, or you're not willing to forgive your brother, your sister? And I think it's so easy for us to oftentimes look to God and just beg and plead with him to forgive us on a daily basis for the same things that we habitually do. But then when someone who does something, one time, or someone who cuts us off on the highway, whatever it is, but we're so less willing to forgive that person, but then we turn to God and expect him to forgive us. So that was what made it a little easier, to kind of move past that. And, we had some open and honest conversations, and it was like, listen, we've had this talk. And since we've had this talk, we don't have to discuss it anymore. We don't have to visit it anymore. And honestly, this is our first time even talking about what happened between us since our reconciliation, because, obviously we have to bring this to light so that we can kind of help to maybe inspire someone out there or drop a message for someone out there. But outside of that, we haven't had any discussions about the past, because, true forgiveness is equivalent to how God forgives us. When we have a repentant heart and we ask God to forgive us for something, he says he forgets about it. It's the same thing with us. The enemy will try to remind us of things, but true forgiveness and forgetting happen hand in hand. Now, that doesn't mean if you don't forget and you still have those memories in your mind that you haven't forgiven that person. That's not what that means, because the enemy's job is to continue to try to distract us and make us think that there's division where it's not. So if God cleans a slate and he starts things new, then guess what? It's new. And
that was a big piece for me, is being able to truly watch and know that Josh had forgiven me. It took a very long time for me to forgive myself. Honestly, it wasn't until this last year in 2020 where I was able to fully release that and forgive myself. And so I struggled with that for those couple of years. We got back together in 2018, and 2 years later I still struggled, but knowing that he was forgiving me, that helped tremendously, because that was half of the battle for me. I was like, he will never forgive me, even if God says he's forgiven me. Like I didn't expect him to forgive me the way that he did and how soon he did. So that was what truly helped helped me to know that God was in the midst, knowing that a man can forgive something that happened so tragically. If he had enough in him to forgive me for, the destruction of our family and our marriage, and then God had to definitely be in the midst of it. And so that is what truly, helped me in the beginning. Now, again, the road for myself was not easy. It was something that I still struggled with, time after time. And that's just how the enemy does. He just, wants you to think that what God said is true is not true. And so he plays, on your mind, and he knows the exact button to push to get you to react or to feel a certain way. And so you have to be rooted in the word. You have to be in constant prayer, because when you go through things like this, you're fragile. And so you have to know how not to be easily broken. And God, the devil knows just how fragile you are, so he knows how, to break you down. So you have to put in a lot more work to be spiritually grounded, to be able to stand on your own, and know the truth and stick with it, because like I said, it won't be something that you'll wake up and it's all pieced back together. So
yeah. And I think after all of that, it pretty much, kind of hit fast track with us, because obviously we had the past history of marriage, and while we didn't want to speed past and just expedite things to where we didn't deal with the things that we had on our hearts and on our minds. So that's where those open, honest conversations were imperative. Honesty and communication were essential with this moment, just like they are with any moment in any relationship with anyone. They played a vital part with us being able to progress and to not drag things along just because of fears or doubts or whatever. It was like fully trusting God. And the biggest thing I know during this time, even from the point that we had first separated and everything, it was, hey God, if you want this thing to happen, then this has to be something that you do. And make sure that it's something that we're not doing just for the kids' sake. It's easy to do, and I know a lot of people, they might try to make things work after they've separated or whatnot because of the children's sake. But honestly, you have to dig so much deeper than that, because even our children, as much as we love them and we pour our hearts into them and they're our world, similar to how I said earlier in this message, if we do things only on the basis of things that are in our face or people or tangible things, then it'll fade, as soon as there's some contention there. So with our children, I wanted to make sure that we weren't doing this just for our children, because I know if that was the intent, then somewhere down the line,
60, 70 years old, we're back doing the same thing.
Back doing the same thing.
Wait until they get of age to live on their own, and then be like, okay, well, we don't have any responsibilities or ties to their growth, so we can just end it. So it was very, we had to be very meticulous in, making sure that we were intentional with our conversations.
Yep.
And that was hard too, because we hadn't talked about it. Like we didn't communicate when we were struggling, and when we actually were going through the divorce process. Like, we didn't communicate at all. I didn't say, hey, this is the stuff that I'm not happy with, and vice versa. So this was like our first time, and it was hard because on one side it was like, okay, I'm seeing a little light. Like, okay, things may be working out. But now I have to talk, and I have to talk about this, and these are hard conversations to bring up. And so I was fearful that talking about this was going to open up something new, or open up what, had been buried before. And then that was going to destroy everything. So those prayers to God, were serious. If this is, going to work, Lord, we need you to be the voice of reason. We need you to be speaking through us, letting us say the things that are supposed to be said, and not being afraid of saying them, not being afraid of what the end results are going to be. Mm-hmm. So we had to be very intentional with our prayers to get through that hurdle.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the conversation piece doesn't stop. The communication doesn't stop, just from the reconciliation, because there's things that we're still learning about each other. I don't think you ever stop learning a thing about a person, because the only omnipotent person is God. He's the only person that knows everything, the only being that knows everything. So it's critical to make sure that those conversations are open, and make your mate feel that you do have a true open door policy, that, hey, I can come to you about anything and everything, and I'm not going to be ridiculed about it. We can have a true conversation, or you're not going to be in your feelings about it, but it's, hey, I'm bringing this to you because I love you. If I didn't, then I wouldn't open it up. I would just let it irritate me to the point that I'm willing to just run away from it. So definitely got to keep those conversations going. I don't care if it seems like something that's so small and so simple. If it's on your mind, then it's something that is worthy enough to bring forward to a conversation. And for us, I know when it came to talking about, remarriage, what that would look like for us, we didn't want to recreate things. We didn't want to have a random date. So the date that we got remarried was actually on the day that we started dating officially. Exclusive. So we have our date for our remarriage, but over everything, we ultimately honor our original marriage date, because, I still believe what God said when he first pointed out to me that, hey, this is the woman that you're supposed to marry. And I don't think I heard anything different. That's where that free will comes into play, where we can make decisions. That doesn't mean that God was wrong when he told you something. It means that our humanness got in the way of God's perfect will. And I remember even the day we got married, our pastor at the time that married us, I remember me and him just kind of having this quiet moment outside. And, I remember him pausing and kind of looking up and turning back to me and saying, God is pleased. And hearing that was my confirmation. And I didn't doubt that any way along the way. I simply knew that something had happened to cause distractions between us, but I knew that God hadn't steered me wrong.
That made me cry back then, and it's getting to me now. But yeah, we do, a lot of people, excuse me, voice cracking and everything. But a lot of people do ask, okay, well, do y'all celebrate both, or do y'all just go with the most recent? And it's true, we do celebrate both because we're proud of both. We, agreed that our initial wedding was God, and the second wedding was God as well. So we find victory in both, and we celebrate both. There's no wrong in us celebrating both. And if you want to say happy anniversary 2 times a year, then so be it. But we don't take it lightly, because we know that it was God's doing, and we don't have a second anniversary just to get gifts and do certain things, but we are truly acknowledging God for what he did in our lives, and we celebrate that. And every time we celebrate it, the devil gets mad, but we just remind him that he is defeated yet again, and we are making it through another 6 months or another year, or however. So yeah.
Well, that's pretty much the reconciliation phase, and definitely setting the tone here for episodes going forward. They might not be as lengthy as they tend to have been in the past, give you a little mental break, but also just we'll open up to different topics, Q&A for you all. So definitely continue sending topics that you would like to hear us talk about, Thosegriers@gmail.com. And, even more so than the topic that you all want to talk about, we'll be adding in some different resources and references from some great marriage resources, family resources, and even more things of our experiences that we haven't already discussed in these episodes. So,
and we've also had, a couple people reach out to us and ask or have interest in joining in on the conversation. So if you have a story that you just want to get out and you don't have another space to get it out, feel free to definitely email us and let us know. We will be more than happy to share this platform with you all and engage in conversation. Or if you have burning topics that you just like, our world, our society definitely needs to know more of this, or have those true, heart to heart conversations with other couples, then definitely reach out to us via email, and we'll be glad to include you in on one of our episodes.
Absolutely. So,
your favorite part.
Make sure you like, share, comment, and
subscribe.
All right.
Y'all, we play around with that, but we truly appreciate every person that has subscribed. Make sure that what I didn't know before is that if you click the bell, that's how you get notified that we have a new episode. So make sure that you stay tuned in and connected. We appreciate the ones that have saw episode trailer through now and have commented via YouTube. We do now have podcasts available. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you prefer to watch or listen on a podcast version, we are now live with podcasts, so you can you can listen on the go, because we know our last couple episodes have been lengthy and people have, commented and said, well, I wish I could just listen to it while I'm driving to work. So now you can. But truly, thank you so much for comment, and sharing, and definitely to all of our subscribers.
Absolutely, and keep the feedback rolling, because that's how we progress, just as human people. So, thank you once again for this episode of Loving in the Dark, and until next time, peace.